Welcome to the realm of magic and mystery, classic horror and sci-fi. You are now entering the House of the Unusual podcast with your hosts, Eddie and Joe. Welcome all you cool ghouls and friendly fiends. It's the House of the Unusual podcast. I'm your host, Joe Pavlansky. With me, as always, are my good buddies, Eddie Guevara, Chuck Caputo, and Jason Blakey. What's up, everyone?
All right.
I want to thank everybody for joining us once again on whatever platform you're listening to us. Please subscribe to our podcast. Give us a good review if you're liking what we're doing. It really helps us out with the algorithms and all that, and we definitely want to bump up those numbers. You could also find this on YouTube. Just search in House of the Unusual. You'll see it come up, and subscribe to our channel, like our videos. Eddie and Chuck are always putting out some cool stuff on there, so definitely check it out. And don't forget about our flagship site, the houseoftheunusual.com. That's houseoftheunusual.com. We have a free forum there, and we have links to all of our other cool stuff. So you don't want to miss out on that. All right, we have a lot to cover today. We're going to talk about some of our favorite or just some obscure movies that we know of. We're going to dive a little bit into those. But first, we want to see how everybody's doing today. So we're going to start off with Chuck. So all Charles, right. What's new, buddy?
Hey, not too much. I tell you what, keeping busy. Doing a lot of shows, and I just stopped at the storage unit today to put some more stuff in there. So that's going really well too.
Going well, and shows are picking up, and hopefully Sherry is starts getting a lot better out there. So we will be praying for.
You know what? Even the sea monkeys look a little concerned. And
yeah, how are the sea monkeys doing? Are they still doing well?
Big. One's a real big chubby one. I guess that's me. Sherry named them Joe, Eddie, and. So Chuck, and Michael, and
nice.
So yeah, they're doing good. You know what? Eddie has the raw footage. Sherry did a synopsis from the very beginning when she first got the kids, when she first, put them into the water, and as days went on, she made another clip, and so she sent the raw footage. So sometime in the near future, Eddie's going to come out with a cool video. So it's pretty cool.
Nice. Well, we can't wait for that. So sounds cool. All right, Eddie, what's been new over at House of the Unusual?
Almost ready to launch Ghost Ship Times. One important thing I wanted to bring up here is one is everybody was given an assignment, and everybody doing it. But Jason's almost got his quarter of the way.
Yeah, it's getting started.
That's for the book. My goal is to try to publish the book before October, and that would be a great sell, especially for the Halloween season. And I'm talking about the book that's going to be the 7-foot monster that never was.
Ooh.
Those amazing stories of comic book mail order. The thing I was going to say, Joe, is also we've been making some sales, which is great. Chuck's magic apparatus is selling, and that's unique because it's only one or two of a kind, and you can find that only on Etsy. So that's great. One of them just ran out, so whoever gets it out there will probably be worth $1 million in 2 months. So
all right, so we'll turn it over to Jason real quick and see what's new with him. And Jason, anything on the realm of kung fu booklets or anything like that? Have you picked up anything cool lately?
Yeah, I came across a picture of a book that I thought was totally fictitious. I didn't even think it was real. I thought when you ordered, they would just ship you some other book. But one guy had a copy, and I managed to talk him into trading it to me, and I finally have a copy of The Secrets of Guevara Power. So, which was a total ripoff of a previous book. So it was. All it did was trace the images. It's and drop about a quarter of the content. So it was.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I thought that's right. You were looking for that really bad.
Yeah. Well, not really bad because I didn't even think they existed. But there was. I got lucky.
Wow.
Very cool. All right, guys. So we are going to start off talking about some of our favorite or just some obscure movies that we know about that we want to bring out to the forefront so they could be in the realm of horror, sci-fi, westerns, cartoons, whatever your little heart desires out there. But we're going to talk about some of these movies that are great and they really just don't get the recognition that we think they deserve. So we're going to put Chuck right on the forefront and have him start off with one of his favorite or just an obscure movie that he wants to talk about. So what do you got, Chuck?
All right. You know what? Sherry and I both actually like this movie. She's the one that brought it up, and I do remember parts of it, and we watched it the other day. It's from 1966. It's called The Frozen Dead. And I don't know if any of you guys have heard of this or what, but when I was a real young kid, I remember parts of it, and Sherry does remember more of it. So we sat down and watched it. It's a really cool movie. There's a guy who lives in England, and he's a scientist, and he's a German scientist, and his niece and her friend come out to visit him, and the friend of the niece, the girl, actually gets murdered, and then the scientist was looking for a way to actually freeze a person's brain or like suspend it. And so yeah, so he had her head on a platter hooked up to all kind of things, and it was pretty slick. And there was like a wall of arms with with wires attached to it, like electrodes and all this stuff. And so she would secretly make these arms move through like mind control. It kind of almost was along the lines of The Brain That Wouldn't Die. It was very, very similar, like in a lot of ways. But it's a cool movie. You know what? It has a good twist to it, and the actual laboratory and all this stuff is really cool scenery. So if you guys want to check that out, it's called The Frozen Dead from 1966. And when Sherry comes on, she'll tell you more about it. That's one of her favorite movies, actually. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard of that one, Frozen Dead from 1966. I'm gonna try to look it up now. What was it like a monster movie?
I guess sci-fi you would classify it as, and the uncle was Dana Andrews, and he's an old time actor from the '40s, I believe, and it was a really cool story. He had some German soldiers frozen, like suspended animation from World War II, so that's the whole premise behind it. And
Oh, no, yeah, I see. It was a British science fiction horror film.
right.
Yeah, I've never heard of that one. I tell you, that looks really cool.
Yeah, check it out. And it was in color too. I was surprised that from 1966. I mean, I don't think there was too many movies in color back then. Some, I guess, but this one was.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the photos now. So there was like uh, a brain that's on the table. It looks, or just a head rather, that looks like kind of just bluish, but it reminds you of
Yeah,
oh, what was that movie? What was that older black and white movie with the lady that had it was just her brain on the
yeah.
table?
Is that The Brain That Wouldn't Die? Right.
Yeah, the brain that wouldn't die.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
from
yeah, it was.
1962. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very similar. The Brain That Wouldn't Die had some big goon that was locked in the closet. Remember, and then she controlled him to come out and choke everybody. Well, this girl in this movie, The Frozen Dead, she controlled the arms that were attached to the wall. Like corpses' arms, and then the arms were choking people later. So it was very similar to it. And her famous words in this movie were really cool. When her friend did finally find her head on the platter with all these wires attached, she said, bury me." Yeah, it was really cool. So
Yeah, that's cool. And and it reminds me of another film too that we'll cover it. And it's kind of like it's obscure kind of TV movie, but it's called "They Saved Hitler's Brain" from
oh
1968, and it looks just like that. The brain that wouldn't die, and they saved Hitler's brain. They all have the same kind of concept of this head that's just alive and being kept alive. But
yeah.
this one is a really different movie. It came out, like I said, in 1968. It was adapted for television from a shorter 1963 film, which was called Madmen of Mandoras.
Mm-hmm.
And this one was about World War II is over. Nazi officials remove Adolf Hitler's living head and hide it in the fictional South American country of Mandoras so they can resurrect Nazi Germany in the future. Fast forwarding into the 60s, the surviving officials kidnap a scientist with expertise in nerve gas in an attempt to conquer the world. The scientist's son-in-law is a security operative, and the scientist's daughter travel to Mandoras to rescue the scientist and foil the evil plot. And it really doesn't star anybody that we would know of. It's very, small stars in it, but it is definitely a cool movie to watch. It's only 91 minutes, so it's fairly short, and they have done some some references in popular culture to the movie, specifically The Simpsons. There was 2 episodes that kind of, or actually, I'm sorry, there's 5 episodes that kind of mirrored what was going on in that movie and kind of like lampooned it a little bit. So definitely a cool movie. I would have, nudge everybody to check it out if they could. They saved Hitler's brain from 1968.
Well,
all right, Eddie, what do you got over there?
I got one here. It's funny that you guys are saying that because for a second, I guess it's the same idea more likely, but this one is more like I'm not saying The Thing from Another World. That's not the movie I'm talking about. The overall movie that I'm talking about has a similar name. It could either be called Chill Factor or also known as Cold Night's Death with Robert Culp and Eli Wallach. Did any of you guys see that? It was in 1973.
No.
It's kind of where 2 scientists suspect they have a bunch of animals, and one of the animals is really not there in their polar station. It's not what it seems to be. It's kind of like a big giant wolf. It's kind of like The Thing, but it's called a Cold Night's Death. It's got similar to I thought when Chuck said originally Frozen Death, I said maybe that's another name because they did call it a Chill Factor in sometimes earlier on. But anyway, that's called Cold Night's Death, and it was a really good film, and it's very, it's like the time, and it is in color, of course. It's 1973, but it's kind of like similar to The Island of Dr. Moreau. Remember that movie?
Oh, that was great.
It's similar to that. There's one of the primates is kind of like not not what it is. It's like a wolf, and it's really cool. I mean, I saw it a long time ago, but I remember the movie being really good. So are we gonna go round robin? Or you want me to give you another one that I think is really
good? We'll go over to Jason and see what he has.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I was trying to think. I don't rewatch a lot of movies, but we watched one recently with the kids called Rasputin the Mad Monk from 1966.
Oh, that's a great movie.
An old Hammer film with Christopher Lee, and the kids loved it, surprisingly, because they haven't watched a lot of Hammer films.
Wow.
And then we were watching Batman Begins, and all of us were kind of upset at how the Scarecrow in that movie was kind of wimpy, and we're thinking if Christopher Lee had been in there as a Scarecrow, it would have been awesome.
Oh, that would have been a good one.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
But yeah, that Rasputin the Mad Monk, that's a really cool movie. I enjoyed it. It has Christopher Lee, Barbara Shelley. Who else is it? Richard Pascoe. That's a great movie.
That's an old movie, man.
All singing, all dancing.
In 1970 something, man.
All right, Chuck, what do you got? What's next on your list there?
Well, you know what? There's a movie that I remember when I was a kid also. It's called The Shuttered Room from 1967. Oh. It was with Gig Young and Carol Lindley. You know what? If you search her, she acted in a lot of movies way back in the 60s, the early 70s. I mean, she'll look familiar to you right away. It was a really cool movie, and I like Gig Young. I mean, he was a fantastic actor. He played in a couple of the Twilight Zones, as a matter of fact. And he played in Bruce Lee's last movie, The Game of Death. They only filmed half of it, and they had to get somebody else. Well, they did a lot of editing and so forth. Mm-hmm. But Gig Young played in there. As a matter of fact, I believe he committed suicide a year later. I believe he committed suicide in 1979. He actually shot his then wife, and himself, and there was no note or anything. So I don't know exactly what was going on there, but he was a really cool actor. I liked him a lot. I think he was married at one time to Elizabeth Montgomery. But yeah, check it out. It's called The Shuttered Room. And Carol Lindley, when she was a kid, she was in like an orphanage type of thing, and there was some type of a creature or something that was locked into a shuttered room, and she went back later as an adult with her then husband, which was Gig Young, and so that's where the story takes off from there. It was different. I mean, it was really neat, and that was 1967, I believe.
Sounds like an old Lovecraft story.
Yeah, that is. I should have. Oh my goodness, you're good, Jason. I actually, forgot to mention that is based on H.P. Lovecraft. Yep, one of his stories.
I'm a big Lovecraft fan.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, fantastic.
Awesome. Very cool. All right, my next one is The Secret of the Blue Room. from 1933. It's a pre-code mystery film directed by Kurt Newman, and it stars the famous Lionel Atwell, Gloria Stewart, Paul Lucas, and Edward Arnold.
Oh, wow.
So a little bit on the movie. It's a woman suitor named Tommy challenges his two rivals to each spend a night in a blue room in which several murders had occurred years before at 1 a.m. Tommy sleeps there on the first night but disappears at 1 a.m. The second man sleeps there the next night. At 12:30 a.m. he starts playing the piano but is shot half an hour later. As these events occur, a police investigation leads to several answers to several mysteries. On the fifth night, the third man sleeps in the blue room. However, he places a dummy in an armchair and conceals himself behind a coat. At 1 a.m., a revolver reaches around the door and fires at the dummy. The man and several police officers jump out of their hiding places. After a furious gunfight, the villain is apprehended and discovered to be Tommy.
Wow.
So it's a very cool movie.
You've given away the whole movie. Jeez.
Yeah. What'd you do there, man?
Yeah, everybody will forget it anyways. It's, you know what, there's no spoiler alerts on the movie that's
1933 movie.
you know 90 years old. If you haven't seen it, that's your fault. No, but it was produced by Carl Laemmle Jr. So it does have some big names attached to it. It's a Universal release, and it came out on July 20th, 1933. It's only 66 minutes long, so it's a very quick film, but it's one of those films that it really keeps you interested in on. So those 66 minutes go by, you know, just a few minutes. So this is a more kind of obscure film, but it is known by you know, some people that are horror fans or fans of pre-code films. It's definitely pre-code. You could see some of the gruesomeness in it that would say, yeah, you know, this wouldn't have taken place, you know, prior to the Hays Code, you know, really being implemented. So definitely check it out. Secret of the Blue Room, 1933.
All right.
All right, who's next, Eddie?
All right. I got one, and now this one here, I'm not gonna give away the story like just did, but this one is cool. And if you guys like flying saucer, this is a good one. Very obscure. Very few people probably say that they heard of it, but it's called 1968, The Bamboo Saucer. Anybody, you guys hear that?
I never heard of it.
Okay,
No.
The Bamboo Saucer is a flying saucer that is hidden in a red Chinese pheasant village and is sought by a team from the United States and USSR. On finding it, they're going to band together to explore the saucer and take a trip into space. Never saw that? I saw that, I think it was in the mid-'80s. They used to give that Sunday, what was it called? Sunday Classic Movies on Channel 11. What was that called, Chuck?
I can't place it right now.
You remember every Sunday they had a something classic or something. But anyway, that's called The Bamboo Saucer.
Okay, cool.
Not my favorite, one of my obscure films. So go ahead, Chuck, it's your turn.
Well, here's a comedy. In 1945, The Horn Blows at Midnight. I remember that when I was a kid, seeing it. It was an old time movie, and it always stuck with me. And I looked it up recently, and I watched part of it. Wow, Jack Benny, and he plays a guy that goes into a trance, and he was assigned by an angel to actually, I believe, save the world. And he had to go up on a billboard and climb up and blow the horn at midnight. It was hilarious. Jack Benny did a really good job in there. I don't know if you guys ever heard of that movie or not. The Horn Blows at Midnight.
No, definitely haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, check it out. It's really, really cool. Very unusual movie. Very unusual, but it's a comedy.
Awesome. Definitely checked it out. Jason, you got any other movies?
I don't have any old ones I can think of right off the top of my head, but there was one from around 2000, I think, called Kung Fu Hustle, that if you haven't seen it,
yeah,
and you like Kung Fu movies, you should see it, because it's
Oh,
like a
that's a
love
great
letter
one.
to Kung Fu movies. Once you get past the first 10 minutes, which is totally different than the rest of the movie. So
You know, Jason, I couldn't get to the first 10 minutes on that film.
yeah, the first 10 minutes, completely different movie. Once you're through that, then it's all fun and games and special effects and magic and stuff.
Yeah, I see. I don't know about it because I actually changed the channel. I thought it was totally different.
Yep.
But anyway, go ahead, Joe. Your turn.
All right, my next one is The Phantom Express from 1932. It's another pre-code film, which I absolutely love pre-code, movies, because I kind of feel it was the movies after the Hays Code were very sanitized, and there was just too much involved with the code, and I think a lot of these writers really didn't want to put out the kind of movies that they wanted to or that they would have prior to the code. So I tend to kind of lead, more towards pre-code movies. But this one, The Phantom Express, it's a mystery crime drama, and it's directed by Emery Johnson. It stars William Collier Jr., Sally Blaine, and Hobart Bosworth. And I'll read a little bit of the plot here. I won't try to give away too much, but the story starts with engineer DJ Smokey Nolan, played by J. Farrell McDonald, speeding down the tracks at full throttle when he spies an oncoming train directly in his path. He quickly applies the emergency brakes. The train starts screeching to a halt, but then derails. Several passengers are killed. An investigation cannot find any trace of the oncoming train that caused the derailment. Smokey is fired for negligence. So, this is a mystery crime drama, so I don't want to give too much in it, so I don't get, hate mail and yelled at.
well, 1 second, Joe. I got a question. That sounds like the Polar Express, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's the pre-code Polar Express.
Okay. What do you explain to some of our listeners what pre-code means?
So
pre-code.
So pre-code, there was a thing. It was called the Hays Code, and it really kind of was adopted around the 33, but it didn't take effect really until the mid 1934. So kind of pre-code Hollywood is 1927 to 34, and once that Hays Code kicked in, they had a ton of stuff. You couldn't have like a lot of sexual innuendo, romantic or sexual relationships between black and white people. Profanity was had to be very mild. No illegal drug use, promiscuity, prostitution, no intense violence, no homosexuality. The police had always kind of come out on top. The law was good, the government was good. Crime was bad, and it had to kind of show that the criminals, they were getting what they deserved. At the end of the movie.
Sounds a lot like the comic code that came in the 50s.
Yeah, very kind of similar to it. So it really, kind of put the restraints on a lot of these writers and directors, and they didn't really put out the movies that they wanted to or probably could have. So the movies were very, I don't want to say boring, but if you look at pre-code and you look at post-code, there's definitely a difference there. Yep. And in my opinion, this is just my opinion, pre-code movies they'll keep your attention a lot more than post-code, because it's more of like, like you said, Jason, if you look at pre-code comic books, they're violent, they're fun to,
those EC comics
they were great to read and to look at. And then kind of after that, it went really kind of silly and were for kids. It was like, okay, these are kind of cool. But that's kind of how the movies went after, post code, when the Hays Code kicked in, is that some of the movies, and you could see them through the, that time frame. Some of those movies have a good concept, but they're just hard to get through because, these writers, their hands were so shackled on what they could do. And, it is what it is now. And, but I would advise everyone out there, man, definitely check out some pre-code movies. You'll definitely see the difference. and I think you'll enjoy them a lot more. Like,
Oh,
could you
wow.
imagine one of our favorite movies, The Old Dark House? Could you imagine that being made, post-code?
Oh, wow.
Wow. Wow. When
So,
did the coda finish? Like, when was it over?
I don't know if it. I'm gonna try to look on here. I don't know if it really ever kind of lifted. I think it kind of just faded out,
Yeah,
like
because I was
most of
going
the
to
stuff
say that
does.
none of the movies today actually apply any of those.
Yeah,
No.
No,
especially like
today is get rid of the code movies. It's called like, hey, I have
yeah, but that was kind of like how the comics code was, just kind of really
faded
just
away.
kind of faded around. Yeah, so I think more of during like the 60s is when it really started
Mhm.
um really fading out, and people were just kind of just doing what they wanted. So
Well, I got a movie here, Joe and Chuck and Jason, that I'm shocked you guys haven't even brought up. It's an obscure movie. It's definitely a movie that I think 80% of us will like. But I know it was done in 1972. Okay. And let's see, it's directed by Bill Norton. Anybody want to take a guess?
Hmm.
No?
no
No.
idea.
No.
No.
Okay, I can tell you that the stars were Cornel Wilde, Jennifer Salt, and Hall. Still nobody knows the name?
No.
Nope.
Not at
Wow.
all.
Okay, it's an anthropologist and a paleontologist and his daughter, while traveling through the southwestern U.S., stumble upon a colony of living, breathing. Oh wow.
Dinosaurs?
Gargoyles.
Oh, I'm
Oh,
just going to say that.
Gargoyle.
Oh, come
Gargoyles.
I
on,
saw that
guys.
movie. Yeah.
That was cool. I love that movie.
You say you never saw it, Jason?
No, I have seen it. It looked like it was done on a budget about $65. I think.
No, let me tell you something. Gargoyles. Actually, the guy from Starsky and Hutch is in it. Movie is
That's a cool movie.
it's a really good film, and for the year and time. I mean, what's your take on it, Joe?
That was a made-for-TV movie, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, we're talking
Mhm.
about obscure movies.
Yeah, that was a made-for-TV. Yeah, so definitely gonna have a less than desirable production budget. I
Sure.
would think.
Sure.
But did you see it, Joe?
You know what? I vaguely remember it from, gosh, probably the 90s. I seen it. I would definitely something I have to revisit again. But I do remember it being like a made for TV. I probably watched it. They probably had it on one of the local channels again. But I do remember it being a made for TV.
Okay. Well,
I have to
Gargoyles,
revisit it though. What year was that from again?
1972. You got it. Let me tell you something. The movie not only is it well done, but in a low budget film, they're awesome. I mean, this gargoyle things look like real things.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's actually scary. Like, it's a really good film.
Yeah. I haven't seen that in probably 30 years. I'd like to go back and watch that. That was a cool movie.
Yeah, that's definitely a movie that it's not, like I said, it's scary, nuts. But the thing is, with the movie itself, even if you look in the computer, if you're able to look up right now and see the movie was really good. I would say it's equivalent with the graphics of Jeepers Creeper, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's and for being, like I said, a low budget film, it wasn't even rated, but it's one of those films that you guys have been missing on.
That was the first film that Stan Winston worked on, apparently.
Yeah, something. Yeah, I believe so.
Wow.
But very, very good film.
Nice.
But anyway, go ahead. Who's next?
I got one. This is a movie that's one of my favorites, and I've talked about it before. And I actually saw it when it was current, 1971. I went to the drive-in. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing, and I currently watch this movie about twice a year. Huge fan. The Abominable Dr. Phibes.
Oh wow, yeah.
And that's with, of course, Vincent Price.
There was two of them, by the way.
Yeah, the return of Dr. Phibes was about a year or two later, 1972, 1973. Basically, Dr. Phibes' wife, Victoria, she was on the operating table when she died, and he wanted revenge. And so he actually come up with a really crazy way to kill each of the surgeons. It's a real, oh my goodness, a really cool movie. The girl that played Victoria, the wife in the first one, Eddie knows. I'd like him to get her on the show if it's possible. That's Carolyn Monroe. And the second Dr. Fives, The Return of Dr. Fives. The girl that played Victoria was Virginia North. But excellent movies. You know what? The first one I think is even better. So check it out. 1971, I believe. The Abominable Dr. Fives.
All right, very cool. All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the next one I got is a 1931 pre-code horror film, and I'm going to give you guys the names right now, and I want you to look it up online, like searching the images, because it has a fantastic poster. It is called The Drums of Jeopardy. So if you type in The Drums of Jeopardy 1931, check out the images and look at the poster. It's of like a mad scientist in like this dungeon, working in his lab, and then there's two faces that are looking through. I don't know if it's like a window or something.
Yeah.
You guys see it?
It's like Clara Bow in there.
That's cool.
I mean, is that not a cool
Yeah.
poster or what, man? Just the greens, you know, the different shades of green and everything. It's really cool. So this one is it stars Warner Oland, and everybody out there should know who Warner Oland is. He was the famous detective. Come on, does anybody know it? Charlie Chan.
Oh,
okay. Yeah, I was gonna say I got you. Yeah.
He played Charlie Chan in 16 films. He also played Dr. Fu Manchu. But in this one, you have Warner Oland, June Collier, and Lloyd Hughes, directed by George B. Seitz. And a little bit about the film is in the Russian Empire, the nobleman Prince Gregor Petrov seduces chemist Boris Karlov, not Karloff, but Karlov's daughter Anya, who then commits suicide after becoming pregnant. After discovering Anya's body with the Drums of Jeopardy, a necklace owned by the Petrov family, Karloff vows revenge against them.
wow.
It looks like this is a really cool movie. It's only 75 minutes long, came out March 2nd, 1931. And I definitely recommend to check it out. Even just by looking at the poster, you got to be like, this is a cool looking movie, man.
Wait a second. I didn't even know Karloff had another daughter.
Yeah. There's something you didn't tell us, Sarah.
Yeah.
Yep. So who's next? Me again, I guess.
Yep, all you.
Okay. Man, I'm very shocked that you guys are coming back like with the gargoyles. Well, what about this? I know they've made several movies that are similar, but At the Earth's Core. Come on.
I think I've seen that one.
What year was that one?
At the Earth's Core. Joe, what's going on here? 1976. That's when a team of scientists have a machine and they start drilling. And then when they start drilling, they're running a test run, their iron mold drilling machine. And they come up an underground world of prehistoric creatures. And this is kind of similar to the Harryhausen films. It's kind of like the Titans, like that. It has a similarity.
The stop motion.
Yeah, and At the Earth's Core, actually, it's very, very similar to the one that this guy who did Iron Man, what's his name? The junior, the famous.
Yeah, Robert Downey.
Robert, like he goes into the journey to the center of the earth.
Yeah.
It's very similar to that. It's actually almost like the same kind of thing, but it's a really nice film.
I actually did an article on that film for Scary Monsters magazine, and I believe it. I'm trying to look here what I can't remember what issue it was. I believe it was number.
I thought you hadn't even heard of the film.
I think it was number 104. No, I can't remember. I'm trying to look it up now. I can't.
Joe.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was called, but there was a lot of we did in that issue a lot of Edgar Rice Burroughs films. I can't remember which number it was.
Joe, what is your take on the film, Joe?
I liked the film. I thought it was really cool. So it was in issue number 111. It's About Time. Scary Monsters came out winter of 2019. But I liked the film. I thought it was really cool. It was, it wasn't the same as the book. It kind of emulated the book a little bit, but there was some differences. But I liked the movie. I thought it was very interesting.
You know,
Who was in it? Carolyn Monroe was in there, correct?
yes.
I'm trying to remember. Yeah, she was, absolutely fantastic in it as always. It's Carolyn
Yeah,
Monroe.
and good and
What else
good.
could you say?
You know, Joe. When you look at it, actually, you got Carolyn Monroe in this one. Then you got which I almost cried when I heard she died. Man, Raquel Welch.
Oh
I
yeah.
guess the reason is because Raquel Welch pillow from the Honor House comic books. Me having that, it kind of really bothered me because, in a sense, a piece of mail order died with her. And I grew up, like I said, not really watching too much of her, but I always saw the comic book ads that had her. So to me, she was kind of like a novelty kind of thing. And but anyway, you had 1 million BC, and then you had Jane Fonda, and this particular movie had the Earth's core. Always had like a nice, beautiful girl in it. Even the time travel, the machine, with what do you call that? The time travel machine. When is it called the time? Yeah, the time traveling. What is the name of it, Chuck?
Is that the time? Is that the time
The
machine?
time machine. That's correct.
Yeah,
Time
yeah.
machine. Where it had the nice, beautiful blonde in the end there. Not in the end, but
That's a
all
good
those
movie.
films are kind of like pretty cool to watch.
Yeah.
They were kind of made like with the same style as Hercules, which was like old and new at the same time.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
But you know what kind of sucks is that at the Earth's core, it really wasn't well received. I know they did a episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000 on it. There was a lot of that came out in, like, New York Times and all that didn't give it a very favorable review. But I think if you're a fan of sci-fi movies, you're a fan of Edgar Rice Burroughs movies, I think you'll enjoy it, unless you're one of those hardcore fans where not one iota could deviate from the book. But it's a cool movie. It's from the 70s. You got to kind of watch it in the time it was filmed.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm looking at the New York Times review, and they're saying all the money used to make it, and it had a budget of 1.5 million. And you look at the movies, the blockbusters made today, 300-400 million dollars.
Yeah.
That's
Chicken
crazy.
feed. Jeez.
Yeah, I don't think they gave it, kind of a fair review. I think because I think because you had some big names in it, Doug McClure, which every time I see his name, I always think of Troy McClure
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
Simpsons, who they actually, based that character off of, and Peter Cushing, Carolyn Monroe. So you had some very big names attached to it, and I thought that maybe, along with Kevin Conner directing it, they thought that this would be a lot more than it was, and I think it's a case of, is maybe overhyped, and they were kind of projecting it to be a lot better, and then when they watched it, it didn't live up to their expectations of what they perceived the movie to be. So, but yeah, definitely watch it with an open mind, and that it is from the 70s, and I think it's a very enjoyable movie.
Nice.
Well, Joe, to make it, some of those movies, like when you say from the 70s, I understand, but like, for example, the TV shows like Journey to the Bottom of the Sea and all that stuff, they were also aired around the same time, give or take. They were pretty good films, Joe. I got to admit with that.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of good stuff that came out in the 70s, and like I said, I feel every decade you have to watch it in the kind of like in the decade it was produced, and know a little bit about the actors, what kind of technology was used at the time, because I think a lot of people look at these movies, at the the eyes of today, of the technology that we have today, and go, oh, this is kind of
Right.
campy and all that. But if you look at it, they're using Technicolor and all that, and it's just, it is what it is. They had some guys in suits for the monsters and all that, and it was a big budget, but it was kind of a lower type budget. If that makes sense. It was big, in the fact that it was a couple million, 1.5 million. Some estimates are 400 to 500,000 as well, but it just is. It's a fun movie. It's not an award winner, but
Right. Sure.
yeah.
All right, I got one. This goes to 1972, and I saw this when it was current. Also, it's a cult classic, I guess. The Thing with Two Heads, and that's with Rosie Greer and Ray Milland. He was a very popular actor at that time, and he had a personality. You know, like I've seen different movies of him. Very serious actor. You know, he seemed actually kind of like miserable, but yeah, for him to take on a role like that was really pretty shocking, I guess. But yeah, it's a really cool story. It's like you said, Joe, campy type of thing where his head gets sewed onto Rosie Greer's body, and they kind of argue throughout the whole movie and everything. It has a lot of funny parts to it, and there's two people that did a cameo in there: Casey Kasem and Pat Priest, who was Marilyn from the Munsters, or they do a brief thing in there also. But if you want to see a unique movie, very unusual, 1972, The Thing with Two Heads.
Oh, that almost sounds like one of the black exploitation movies.
Yeah, right.
It does. I
Yeah,
think
if
this.
No, go ahead, Eddie.
No, go ahead.
It's funny because you could definitely see, what's the white guy's name? Because it's a white guy and black guy, but what's the white guy's name? You could definitely tell that he's standing behind the other guy with the suit, over him and all that. It's pretty funny. But they also did a Simpsons Treehouse of Horror that was based off.
That was neat. I loved it.
Yeah, definitely a cool flick to check out. What do you got, Eddie?
No. What I was going to mention, it's actually Jason's turn first, I think.
I've got one. I've got one. I was trying to think of what old movie have I watched that stuck with me, and one was The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Oh, yeah,
very good.
1920, and that one, and it's just disturbing. I guess even today, it's disturbing to watch. Some horror movies are just fun, and some are campy, but some are generally unsettling, and that's an unsettling one.
That is unsettling. You're right.
Yeah, that's definitely German expressionism at its best, right there. And,
that Nosferatu were
20s. Yeah.
Isn't Joe? Don't you think that they kind of like all the movies? They kind of have the same premises, like the Island of Dr. Moreau and that one, the Cabinet of Dr. It's kind of similar. Didn't they also make a movie around that time called? They kind of cloned Hitler. What was that one called, Joe or Chuck?
I don't remember them.
You remember they cloned him into 5 different kids?
Oh, that would have been the boys from Brazil, maybe?
Yeah, the boys from
Brazil. Okay.
It kind of reminded me of that when you say they all kind of had. But I have a film, guys. I have another film here. I'm throwing a couple films, and I'm kind of shocked at some of the response here. People forgetting them. How about Battle Beneath the Earth? Anybody heard that?
No.
How about you, Chuck?
No, that kind of slips my mind. No.
That's when a Chinese general goes berserk and he starts making a bunch of tunnels from China to the USA under the Pacific Ocean. And then there's a man that discovers it and they lock him up because they think he's crazy. But eventually they have to go underground. And, now I saw that film probably in 1976 because I remember it was so. But what I kind of liked about the film the most, there's a girl there. Her name is actually Vivian Ventura. And it also starred Robert Irie. And now this is a 1967 film. And there's a part, right? They're like in a cave, they're fighting. And where they're fighting, the girl's wearing like an entire one-piece suit, like a jumpsuit, whatever. And it's kind of, she goes up against the corner and she starts like to remove the suit. And when she brings the zipper down a little, that scene stuck in my mind forever. But I saw that one because I think I saw that film around the same week or same month as I did not Journey to the Center of the Earth, but At the Earth's Core. Because every Sunday, either you watched Abbott and Costello on around 1 p.m., 2 p.m., they always had classic films. And I forget the name of the theater. It was called something theater. And it would I forgot if it was either Channel 7 or Channel 11. But you always got to see, that's all you got to see on Sunday. You couldn't see, Bugs Bunny and the other cartoons and stuff because that was only Monday to Friday. than on the weakest. But anyway, it's called Battle Beneath the Earth.
Hmm.
You guys got to watch. It's really good.
Yeah, check it out.
So
Very cool. All right. The one I have next is The Return of Chandu. It is from 1934. It's a 12-episode serial cliffhanger. Has anybody out there seen this one?
I haven't seen it, Joe. But
No.
exactly which one you're talking about, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah, so it's a serial cliffhanger. There's 12 episodes. It's a total of 208 minutes. And it stars the one and only Bela Lugosi as Frank Chandler, a.k.a. Chandu the Magician. So this is a this is, I tell you what, this is a very cool cool movie. It's right there on the verge of the code. It kind of came out right after, but was filmed right before, you know, it really kicked in. So you kind of get a little mix of pre and post code in it. And it's definitely worth checking out. You know, sometimes with the serials, people try to watch them, you know, all the way through, and it kind of loses the magic of what a serial cliffhanger was intended. And for those out there not familiar with serial cliffhangers, is that, you know, usually they ran anywhere from 12 to 15 minutes. The first episode was usually a little bit longer. It ran closer to, you know, 18 to 20 minutes. But then all the chapters following that ran anywhere from 12 to 15 minutes. And sometimes if they were, because these films, these serial cliffhangers were very low budget and were geared towards kids, sometimes they started running out of money, you know, halfway through or something. So you might see, you know, one or two chapters in, they'll kind of go over previous chapters before that and try to catch everybody up, because you got to remember at the time kids would go to the movie theater, you know, once a week, you know, say on a Sunday or something, and they'd watch their cartoons, and then chapter 1 would play. So the following week they'd go, chapter 2 would play, and so on. So some of these chapters, they were kind of cool because if you missed, you know, any of the other ones, you could get caught up. But it was more for the production companies to save money, because they were either running out of money, or they were projected to go over budget, or running out of time as well. So there could have been a lot of things that were put in on them. But, you know, if you watch some of these, you know, cliffhangers now at your house, it's good to watch maybe, you know, 2, 3, or 4 episodes, and then revisit it again, you know, the following week or the week after, and let that kind of anticipation build for it. But yeah, The Return of Chandu, it's a great great serial. It's based off of the radio series Chandu the Magician, and I recommend everyone out there check it out. It's got Bela Lugosi. What more do you need?
Yeah, really. Wow.
Joe, did you ever watch the 12-hour serial from The Master Mystery Houdini? Did you ever get to see that?
No, you know what, I that one's tough to find. I haven't been able to. I got a whole pile of serials that me and a buddy are going through now, and that Houdini one, I haven't found it yet.
No, I see. No, because I thought, I was just wondering if you did, because I was wondering your intake on it.
Yeah, a lot of these serials are lost, or they have bad copies out there. There are some places like the Serial Squadron that are they're finding and preserving a lot of these films, and they're remastering them and putting them out on DVD or Blu-ray.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I know that a couple months ago, the guy that owns Serial Squadron just came across a collector who had something like over 100 of these 16 millimeter movies in his garage, and they were working on going through them and trying to transfer as many as they could to Blu-ray.
Wow.
So, you know, a lot of these serial cliffhangers, that the films are bad, so you might get bad sound, bad visual effects. Some of them are lost. You know, some of the chapters are lost, so you might get a 15 chapter serial that, you know, you have chapters 2, 7, and 11. You know, and that doesn't really give you too much with the, you know, what's going on. So
Yeah.
You know, I'll tell you what, right before we end the show today, because I know we're running short, is Joe, because I know this is something you always did, and I took this from you, this idea, but I challenge every listener and all of us to see that there's a movie, particularly Joe, that you probably enjoy. It's called Journey to the Far Side of the Sun. Any of you guys seen that movie ever?
It sounds familiar, but I don't believe I've seen it.
Okay, it's actually Roy Thinnis is in it. I actually met Roy Thinnis in Chiller, and I had him autograph a big poster of that particular film. But I challenge it. It's basically after Apollo 11. Basically, they find an Earth-like planet in the opposite side of the sun. I don't want to say much but it's a really good film because otherwise you guys won't. I don't want to tell you what it's about, but it's a really good film. As what they try to actually go to and see what what the planet is all about. But anyway, I just thought for next week it'll be fabulous if you guys try to watch it.
Cool.
Oh, that just reminded me of what was that movie back in the 70s? Capricorn 8? The big moon landing movie?
That was Capricorn 8, but this is a 1969 film and it's called Journey to the Far Side of the Sun. And the stars are Roy Thinnis. Roy Thinnis is the one that I remember most of all, and Robert Parrish. The director is actually Robert Parrish. So maybe Joe. I think Joe will like it, and I also think Chuck will love it too. I think me and Chuck will like it really.
Nice.
Yeah, I'll have to try to check that out. I don't think I've ever seen that movie, not that I could remember, but it sounds interesting.
Well, remember what I said, and Jason, I don't know if you ever heard that, but there's a film called The Airplane That Disappeared.
Ooh, I like that movie. That was cool.
What is it, Joe? The flight that disappeared, the airplane?
I think it was the flight that
the flight.
Yeah, the flight.
That was a very good black and white film.
Yeah, I liked it
Phenomenal.
a lot.
And it's so obscure you don't even see it in anywhere. Not even on DVD or whatever.
No, you're right. Hey, I got one final movie. I know we're short on time. 1964, The Incredible Mr. Limpet with Don Knotts. When I was a kid, when I seen that, what fascinated me was that drawing. They really did a good job, like the animation. I mean, that fish looked like Don Knotts. I mean, it was amazing. And it was just a cool story. A nice, warm-hearted story. It was funny. It was really cool. The Incredible Mr. Limpet, that was made in 1964, the year I was born.
Wow. Cool. We got it. There's a whole bunch of movies tonight that I gotta list off and definitely sit down and watch, and some that I haven't seen in a long time. Like especially the one you're talking about, The Boys from Brazil, from 1978. That I've never seen that one, and that looks really cool. And kind of like the late 60s and 70s is not really the time frame where I've seen a lot of movies, which over the years I've been trying to see more and more from that time period.
Right.
I usually do kind of, early 60s on down to the silent era, and then, a little bit from the 80s because, I was born in the 80s. So that's the horror movies I grew up with and caused my love for all these films. But yes, for some reason, late 60s and through the 70s, I just kind of, I don't know. I've never really
There's a lot of depressing movies in that period.
Yeah,
man.
Like the
it was a really weird time frame for some of that stuff. It was, they were very low budget. They were trying to be gory and really pushing the envelope on what they can do in the movies. And I think a lot of that was like, when you outlaw something, especially, like during Prohibition and all that for alcohol, people want to do more and more and they want to push the envelope. I think it was the same with movies when they were outlawing, this and that of what you can and can't do in the movies. When it was finally lifted, people were just pushing the envelope as much as they could. And most were doing it with as little money as they could. So, but guys, we're down to the last minute here. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. I want to thank everybody out there in podcast land for joining us. We are here every week for you guys. So don't forget to check us out on your favorite podcast platform. Like our episodes, subscribe to our channel. We're also on YouTube. houseoftheunusual.com is our flagship site. We have a free form there. You could check us out. If you want us to talk about anything that you're interested in or that you want to hear new, that's the place to drop us a line. If you have your own little stuff that you're interested in, collectibles, movies, or whatnot, and you want to be a guest on the show, hey, you don't have to be an expert. You just got to be a fan, and you're more than welcome to come and join us. Drop us a line at houseoftheunusual.com. So Eddie, Chuck, Jason, that's all we got for today, guys. Thank you for joining us. So Sherry, wherever you are out there, hope you feel better. And good night, everyone.
All right. Good
Night,
night. God
everybody.
bless.
God bless.
Good night.